Indiana sleeps under calm skies, but beneath them, blood once stained bars, bedrooms, and city streets. A Dutch soldier gunned down outside a hotel. A husband dismembered in his own home. A lover crushed beneath a roaring car. And a crowd scattered by gunfire on Broad Ripple Avenue. Years later, those responsible face decades behind bars, but the dead remain silent, beyond redemption. And this is Inside Indiana's Most Notorious Black Killers, Shocking Murders, and True Crime Cases. Welcome back to Justice Reversed, where real crimes meet real justice. Number 1. Shamar Duncan. Downtown Indianapolis never sleeps, but one August night in 2022, its noise was replaced by screams, sirens, and disbelief. Shamar Duncan, a 22-year-old from Indianapolis, had no violent record until that night outside the Hampton Inn changed everything. His actions ended the life of a visiting Dutch elite soldier, Corporal Semi Poetsema, and wounded 2 others. Poetsema, a 26-year-old commando from the Netherlands, had survived war zones in Afghanistan, only to die on American soil during what should have been a peaceful training trip. The confrontation began as something trivial, 2 groups bumping into each other after midnight on South Meridian Street. Witnesses later said the Dutch soldiers tried to calm things down, but the tension rose fast. A woman's offhand remark sparked insults, then fists flew. Duncan's brother was knocked to the pavement. The soldiers started to walk away, unaware that the worst was coming. In a pickup truck parked nearby, Duncan's anger boiled over. "Unlock the car. Get the strap," a friend heard him shout, slang for "get the gun." Moments later, the truck made a sharp U-turn toward the hotel. From the back seat, Duncan opened fire, 9 rounds cutting through the glow of the streetlights. 1 bullet entered Poetsema's head. 2 of his comrades fell wounded on the pavement slick with glass and blood. Surveillance cameras captured the chaos, soldiers diving for cover, a black pickup speeding away, flashes lighting the night. Detectives used license plate readers to trace the truck to Duncan's family home. He was arrested 3 days later. In an affidavit, he admitted, "I just spazzed." To his girlfriend, he said he thought one of the soldiers was reaching for a weapon. But investigators found no evidence of any gun among the Dutch troops. The trial in January 2025 drew global attention. Dutch diplomats sat beside U.S. officers in the courtroom. Prosecutors presented body cam footage and witness statements. Defense attorneys argued Duncan acted in blind rage after drinking. Duncan testified quietly, "I didn't mean to kill anyone. I was angry. I wasn't thinking." He was convicted of murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, and aggravated battery. At sentencing, the judge described his decision as an act of senseless violence fueled by pride and alcohol. Duncan stood motionless, eyes low, as the verdict was read: 105 years in prison. "I'm sorry," he whispered to Poetsema's family, "for taking that beautiful soldier." In the Netherlands, outrage was immediate. Headlines called it unthinkable. Defense Minister Keiara Bickett said, "We never imagined this could happen here." Poetsema's mother, Petra van Rijn, told the court via video, "My son served with honor. He was safe in war but killed on your streets." The prosecutor's closing remark echoed across networks. This is what happens when anger and guns meet in America's nightlife. From the tragedy, lessons remain carved in grief. Violence thrives when ego replaces restraint. Alcohol and firearms are a fatal mix, and split-second rage can destroy countless lives. The night Corporal Poetsema died, 2 nations learned the same hard truth: safety is never guaranteed, even among allies. Before moving on, if this truth hits you, press hype, stand with the forgotten, amplify justice, and make sure silence never buries the voices of the lost. Number 2. Caleb Ingram. It began with a whisper on East 2nd Street, a cry for help that broke the silence of an October night in Anderson, Indiana. Police arrived just before midnight on the 30th of October 2024, finding 21-year-old Caleb Xavier Ingram standing in the doorway, his clothes drenched in blood. He looked dazed, almost detached, and pointed upstairs. "He's in my room," he said quietly. Inside, officers found his older brother, William Henry Ingram IV, lying on his bed, motionless, a single stab wound cutting across his neck. The house smelled of iron and fear. Blood trailed down the hallway, into the bathroom, and back to Caleb's bedroom. On the carpet outside his door lay an orange kitchen knife, the weapon that ended a life and shattered a family. The brothers had argued before, their parents told police, but never like this. That night, they fought over money, just $10. In a patrol car recording later released by investigators, Caleb's own words captured the absurdity of it all. $10, he muttered to himself, you're going to get mad at him for $10. The recording also revealed the unraveling of his conscience. Jesus, please let him live, he whispered. I don't want my brother to die. I don't want to be like Cain. Detectives pieced together the events. The argument escalated in the upstairs hallway. William, 22, tried to walk away. Caleb grabbed a knife from his room and lunged once, a single strike that cut deeper than he ever intended. When police arrived, Caleb was covered in his brother's blood but had no wounds of his own. Officers took him to the hospital, but doctors found he was uninjured. I will never pick up another knife, he said to himself as he sat alone in the patrol car. By dawn, Caleb Ingram was charged with murder and taken to Madison County Jail without bond. He declined police interviews and asked for an attorney. During his initial hearing, he appeared silent and distant, staring down at the defense table as prosecutors outlined the evidence, body cam footage, blood pattern analysis, and his own haunting monologue caught on video. The Ingram family's grief stunned the Anderson community. Their mother told reporters they were close. William took care of him. We never thought it could come to this. The case spread quickly on social media, labeled by viewers as the $10 killing, igniting debates about anger, impulse, and mental health in small-town America. Local pastors spoke at vigils, using the biblical name Caleb had invoked. Cain's story lives again, one said, when love turns to rage inside the same bloodline. From tragedy comes warning. Unchecked anger can turn familiar faces into victims. A weapon in reach transforms emotion into irreversible harm, and no argument, no matter how small, is worth a life. As Caleb Ingram awaits trial behind bars, his whispered plea still echoes through Anderson, Jesus, please let him live. Even in the quietest towns, violence waits for one moment of weakness to change everything forever. Number 3. Dejaune Ludie Anderson. A small blue suitcase lay hidden off a country road in southern Indiana, silent, sealed, and waiting to tell a story no one was ready to hear. Inside was the body of 5-year-old Keiara Jordan, a child from Atlanta whose laughter had been replaced by unspeakable horror. Investigators would later learn that his mother, Dejaune, Ludie Anderson, and her friend Dawn Elaine Coleman had carried out one of Indiana's most haunting child murder cases, one driven by delusion, superstition, and madness. In early 2022, the two women traveled across several states with Keiara, staying in Louisville, Kentucky, before tragedy struck. Anderson began posting disturbing messages on Facebook, claiming her son was possessed by a demon in a child's body. One post read, I have to exorcise a powerful force from within my son. Coleman echoed similar language online, warning of evil beings in child avatars. Police later pieced together a grim timeline. In March 2022, Anderson was arrested twice, first in South Carolina after a high-speed chase, and weeks later in Louisville for assault and shoplifting. Released on April 11, she posted online, yes, had to do some healing and killing. Days later, according to Coleman's confession, Anderson pinned Keiara face down on a bed, smothering him as he struggled. Coleman admitted she helped seal the body in plastic bags, then stuffed them into a Las Vegas-themed hard-shell suitcase. Surveillance data tracked both women traveling through Washington County, Indiana, on April 14, where they abandoned the suitcase on a wooded hillside. 2 days later, a mushroom hunter discovered it. When investigators unzipped the case, the smell of decay and the sight of a small child in pajamas stopped even veteran detectives in their tracks. Keiara had died from an electrolyte imbalance caused by dehydration, likely made worse by the suffocation. For 6 months, his name remained unknown. The community buried him under the inscription, Unknown Angel. Only in October 2022 did fingerprint evidence link Anderson and Coleman to the bags, and DNA confirmed Keiara's identity. Warrants followed. Coleman was arrested in San Francisco that same month and later pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder, earning a 30-year prison sentence. Anderson vanished, crisscrossing the country for nearly 2 years, posting paranoid rants about spiritual warfare and government conspiracies. In March 2024, a tip led U.S. Marshals to Arcadia, California, where she was arrested while boarding a commuter train. Her trial, repeatedly delayed, remains pending as she insists on defending herself. The Indiana State Police called the case a crime that shook the conscience of the nation. Washington County residents still visit Keiara's grave, leaving toys and flowers. "We gave him the love his mother denied him," one mourner said quietly during a candlelight vigil. From such pain come urgent lessons. Beware of untreated mental illness cloaked in spirituality. Social media extremism can incubate violence, and children depend on vigilant communities, not silence. In the woods of Indiana, a suitcase once carried the weight of a nation's grief and the reminder that innocence should never die unseen. Number 4. Cherok Douglass. Beneath the calm surface of New Albany, Indiana, one April morning erupted into chaos, where love, jealousy, and violence collided. On the 4th of April 2022, 37-year-old Cherok Douglass carried out a killing spree that left 2 people dead and a community stunned. His victims were his estranged wife, Brandy Douglass, 38, and a bystander, Lauren Yell, 43, of Kentucky, an innocent man who simply stopped for gas at the wrong moment. The violence began around 10 a.m. at a Circle K on Grant Line Road. Witnesses heard a rapid burst of gunfire. Brandy was shot 9 times in the head, Yell was struck 3 times. Prosecutors said Brandy had been terrified for weeks, planning to leave the abusive marriage. Moments later, Douglass sped away in a car, launching a police chase that would turn the town into a crime scene. He soon reached the Onion Tea House restaurant, storming inside with a gun drawn. There, he took the owner, Winnie Wynn, hostage, demanding her keys. Surveillance footage showed him forcing her into her SUV as police surrounded the lot. One fell out while struggling, and Douglass ran over her while escaping. She survived with broken bones. Douglass then tried to ram pursuing officers. Deputy Sarah James avoided being struck only by leaping onto a porch. Moments later, gunfire erupted, and Douglass crashed the SUV into a retaining wall. Both he and Wynn were hospitalized. Tests later revealed methamphetamine and heroin in his system. Within days, Douglass was charged with 2 counts of murder, attempted murder, kidnapping, and robbery resulting in serious bodily injury. He confessed, saying, "I just lost it. I flipped out." Prosecutors described the act as deliberate and cruel. At trial in August 2023, the state presented 3D scans of the scene and witness testimony proving premeditation. The defense claimed he snapped in a jealous rage, but jurors rejected the argument. Douglass's long record, 11 felony convictions, qualified him as a habitual offender. On the 25th of October 2023, Judge Carrie Stiller imposed the maximum sentence of 240 years, calling the case the worst of the worst. Douglass stood pale and silent, then whispered that he wished he could turn back time but planned to appeal. In court, grief filled every row. Brandy's mother, Stephanie Griffin, told him, "You were never worthy of her love. When you put 9 bullets in her head, you killed our whole family." Lauren Yell's mother said she saw no soul, no compassion in his eyes. Brandy's teenage son called him a cruel and evil person. The murders spurred calls for stronger domestic violence protection. Advocates urged courts to track abusers under restraining orders and fund early warning programs. From this tragedy rise 3 truths. Never ignore threats disguised as love, recognize control before it becomes violence, and intervene early when fear replaces safety. 2 lives ended, 1 man lost his freedom forever, and a community learned how fast love can turn into murder. Number 5. Marcus Anderson, Nakeyah Shields, and Elijah Jones. Under the flashing lights of a city in turmoil, 1 man's act of courage met 3 criminals' hunger for chaos. On the 30th of May 2020, as riots swept through downtown Indianapolis following the death of George Floyd, Chris Beatty, a 38-year-old businessman and beloved former Indiana University football player, stepped outside his apartment to protect his neighborhood. Known as Mr. Indianapolis, Beatty had long been a symbol of community spirit. That night, he lost his life defending it. Police say Marcus Anderson, Alijah Jones, and Nakeyah Shields ages 25, 24, and 20 were roaming the streets armed, committing a string of robberies as looting spread. In less than an hour, the trio robbed several people near Delaware, Michigan, Vermont, and Talbot streets. Victims were beaten, held at gunpoint, and stripped of their belongings. One woman was assaulted and robbed of her phone and backpack. Another couple was held up outside Beatty's apartment building. A man barely escaped when gunmen fired at his car as he reversed away. Beatty was texting a friend moments before the shooting, "I'm about to walk around the block now to make sure my building is good." Surveillance footage showed him walking near Talbot and Vermont when he encountered Shields. "Hey, you be safe, it's bad out here," he told her. Seconds later, Anderson opened fire. 4 shots struck Beatty, 3 from behind, 1 piercing the back of his neck. Investigators later linked the murder weapon to another shooting at Circle Center Mall the night before. Forensic evidence, security footage, and witness statements built a case that tied all 3 suspects to the spree. Though Shields and Jones didn't fire the fatal shots, prosecutors charged them under Indiana's felony murder law, holding all participants equally responsible. During the trial, Deputy Prosecutor Ryan Mears said Beatty died living exactly how he lived, helping others. In May 2023, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all counts. Anderson was convicted of 2 murders and 8 armed robberies. Jones was convicted of 1 murder and 8 robberies. Shields, the youngest, was convicted of 1 murder and 7 robberies. On the 21st of June 2023, Judge Mark Stoner imposed sentences that would last a lifetime. Anderson and Jones received 164 years each. Shields received 108 years. All 3 appealed, but in January 2025, the Indiana Court of Appeals upheld the convictions, calling the sentences not inappropriate. Beatty's mother, Deborah Cooper, attended every hearing until her death shortly after the verdict. Prosecutor Mears honored her and her son's legacy. "Chris taught us to live each day fully, look out for others, and do what's right." His alma mater, Cathedral High School, later established a memorial scholarship in his name. From this tragedy come vital lessons. Chaos is no excuse for crime. Standing silent in lawlessness endangers everyone, and courage must never walk alone when order collapses. One man's bravery cost his life, but his legacy still guards the city he loved, reminding us that decency never dies, even when darkness surrounds it. Number 6. Stacey Fuller and Jashon Wallace-Carswell. Under the dark clouds of a summer storm, one man's kindness met 2 men's cruelty on a rain-soaked Indianapolis street. On the 6th of August 2022, Reverend James Dixon III, a 38-year-old funeral home director and beloved community leader, was shot and killed outside his business, Dixon Memorial Chapel, on Bellevue Place. Known for helping grieving families find peace, Dixon had stopped by his funeral home on his motorcycle to avoid the rain, unaware that 2 armed men, Stacey Fuller and Jashon Wallace-Carswell, were nearby in a stolen car. The events leading to his murder began 2 days earlier. On August 4, Fuller and Wallace-Carswell carjacked a woman at gunpoint on Gateway Drive, stealing her vehicle and leaving her shaken but alive. Detectives from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, IMPD, located the stolen car the next day and placed a tracking device on it. Working alongside an FBI agent and SWAT officers, they watched as the suspects drove through the city late that night. At about 1:30 a.m., the stolen car stopped near Dixon's funeral home. The FBI agent observed the 2 men approach Dixon and exchange words with him. Moments later, gunfire shattered the silence. The agent rushed from his vehicle only to see Dixon collapse. Fuller and Wallace-Carswell sped away, triggering a police pursuit. Wallace-Carswell was arrested quickly, while Fuller fled on foot, firing a shot at an approaching SWAT vehicle before being captured. Both men were taken into custody with firearms in their possession. Investigators linked the stolen car, the weapons, and forensic evidence to the murder scene. Prosecutors described the crime as utterly senseless, emphasizing that law enforcement had been monitoring the men for hours but were too far to prevent the killing. Defense attorneys argued that Dixon was armed and that the agents could not clearly see what happened, claiming Fuller acted in panic and Wallace-Carswell was merely a passenger. The jury rejected those claims. On the 27th of June 2024, both men were convicted. Fuller was found guilty of 2 counts of murder, robbery resulting in serious bodily injury, armed robbery, and criminal recklessness. Wallace-Carswell was convicted of murder and robbery resulting in serious bodily injury. During sentencing on the 5th of August 2024, Fuller appeared impassive as the judge imposed 76 years in prison, the maximum allowed by law. Wallace-Carswell received 66 years. Prosecutor Ryan Mears called the outcome a reflection of our city's resolve to protect the innocent and praised Dixon's family for their strength. The Indianapolis community mourned deeply. Vigils were held outside his chapel, candles flickering beneath his portrait. He comforted so many through death, one mourner said softly. It's tragic that death found him this way. This case reminds us that danger often hides behind ordinary moments. Avoid confronting armed strangers, report suspicious activity immediately, and stay alert even in familiar places. Violence often strikes where comfort blinds caution. Reverend Dixon's life embodied compassion. His death reminds us that goodness can be targeted but never silenced. Number 7. Gaylyn Morris. A blinking blue dot on a phone screen led to one of Indianapolis's most shocking crimes of passion. On the 3rd of June 2022, 27-year-old Gaylyn Morris tracked her boyfriend, Andre Smith, to Tilly's Pub and Grill in Castleton using an Apple AirTag she had secretly placed in his car. For days, she had suspected him of cheating. That night, she decided to find proof. What began as a confrontation over infidelity ended with a man crushed beneath a car and a city stunned by how easily technology became a weapon. Inside the bar, Morris found Smith sitting with another woman. Witnesses said she stormed in, shouting, swinging punches, and smashing an empty bottle. She was wild, completely unhinged, one bystander later told police. Staff quickly threw all 3 out. Smith tried to defuse the situation in the parking lot, unaware that his girlfriend was already behind the wheel of her blue Chevy Impala. Moments later, the sound of revving tires cut through the night. Morris accelerated onto the sidewalk, the car mirror striking Smith's hip. He fell to the ground. Then she hit the gas again. Witnesses described hearing a speed bump sound, followed by crunching. One woman testified she ran him over, backed up, and went over him again. When Morris tried to drive forward a 3rd time, the vehicle spun on his body, stuck on the weight of the man she once claimed to love. Police arrived minutes later. Smith lay trapped beneath the front bumper, motionless. Paramedics pronounced him dead at the scene. Officers said Morris stood nearby, sobbing uncontrollably. On bodycam footage later shown in court, she screamed, "Andre! Andre!" as she was handcuffed and placed in the patrol car. During interrogation, Morris admitted tracking him with an AirTag but insisted she never meant to kill him, saying she only wanted to confront him for lying. Prosecutors charged her with murder, arguing the act was deliberate. Her defense countered that she acted in sudden heat, driven by rage and betrayal after being treated like a dog by a man she supported financially. After a 3-day trial in August 2023, the jury deliberated for 4 hours before convicting her of voluntary manslaughter, not murder. Judge Marshall Dawkins Broadwell sentenced her to 18 years in prison, noting that while she showed remorse, rage does not erase responsibility. Before sentencing, Morris faced the victim's mother, Laprecia Sanders, who said tearfully, "My son didn't owe you anything. You took a father from his daughter." The case fueled national debate over AirTag stalking and the intersection of jealousy, technology, and domestic violence. Indiana lawmakers later passed a bill criminalizing unauthorized GPS tracking, a measure advocates said was long overdue. The tragedy underscored haunting truths. Technology can magnify obsession, emotional control is a life or death skill, and walking away is often the most powerful act of survival. In a world wired by location sharing, one fatal dot on a digital map became a warning about the dangers of following rage instead of reason. Number 8. James McGhee. It began as a night of music and celebration, but ended with a young mother's body left in the woods near the state line. Sydney Nicole Buchanan, 27, was a dance instructor from Gary, Indiana, known for her warmth and energy. On the 27th of July 2019, she attended a concert in Tinley Park, Illinois, with James McGhee, a 38-year-old man she had been seeing. She promised her family she would be home afterward. She never made it back. When she didn't return, her mother, Nakeyah Turner, reported her missing. For days, Family and friends searched, posting flyers, pleading for help online. 2 weeks later, a horrifying tip changed everything. A friend of McGhee's came forward, admitting he helped dispose of Buchanan's body. He said she was dead, the witness told investigators. "I saw the plastic bags myself." According to court documents, McGhee had lost it after discovering Buchanan was seeing another man. In a rage, he beat her so severely that even he later described it as bad. The day after the concert, McGhee called that same friend to help him clean up. Inside McGhee's apartment, the witness saw blood on both mattresses and what looked like a human body wrapped in black plastic near the bed. The friend refused to help, but later saw McGhee dragging a suitcase to his car. They drove together to the Thornton-Lansing Road Nature Preserve in Illinois, where McGhee dumped the suitcase in the woods. The tip led investigators to that remote forest weeks later. Hidden beneath dense brush, they found the remains of a woman. Forensic tests confirmed it was Sidney Nicole Buchanan. Detectives then executed a search warrant at McGhee's Gary apartment, finding bloodstains throughout. FBI agents joined the case, classifying it as a kidnapping and homicide spanning 2 states. The FBI offered a $10,000 reward for McGhee's capture. Days later, after a tense manhunt, he was arrested on Interstate 80, 94 inches, Hammond, Indiana. His lawyer claimed he had been on his way to turn himself in. Prosecutors weren't convinced. McGhee was charged with murder and kidnapping and held without bail. Court records revealed this wasn't his first act of violence. 2 years earlier, McGhee had pleaded guilty to felony intimidation after beating and kidnapping his pregnant girlfriend, an assault that caused her to lose 3 unborn children. Despite that history, he was free when Buchanan met him. In court, McGhee sat silent, head lowered. His attorney called it a credibility issue, insisting the story was exaggerated. But for Buchanan's family, there was no doubt. The case sent shockwaves through both Indiana and Illinois, fueling discussions about domestic violence and early intervention in abusive relationships. It offered hard lessons about ignoring red flags, underestimating repeat offenders, and trusting technology and community resources when danger first appears. In the end, the music from that summer concert faded, but one truth remained: behind every missing person alert is someone whose life was stolen by the silence of those who could have spoken sooner. Number 9. Keiara Bickett. It happened in seconds, one careless moment, one unzipped purse, and a mother's world was gone forever. On the 19th of June 2025, 28-year-old Keiara Bickett was driving her children through Indianapolis, running errands like any other day. Her 2-year-old son, Javarius, and 8-year-old daughter sat in the back seat of her Nissan as she stopped for gas, then headed to a nearby CVS. But what began as a routine afternoon turned into an unimaginable tragedy when a single gunshot echoed from inside the car. Keiara had kept her Glock 26 Gen 5 pistol in her purse, a habit she thought nothing of. That day, the purse sat on the front passenger seat beside her daughter, unzipped. As Keiara texted a friend in the CVS parking lot, Javarius climbed into the front seat. Within seconds, he found the gun. His small hand pulled the trigger. The shot struck him in the right eye. The next moments were chaos. Keiara screamed, pulled over, and grabbed her son, shouting to the 911 dispatcher. He shot himself. The gun's in the car. Paramedics rushed Javarius to Riley Hospital, but he died shortly after arrival. The coroner ruled his death an accident caused by a single gunshot wound. Investigators later reconstructed the scene in chilling detail. Officers found the Glock on the driver's floorboard, a spent casing in the chamber, and a bullet lodged in the back seat. They determined the gun had been within the child's reach the entire ride. Bickett was arrested in August and charged with Level 1 felony neglect of a dependent resulting in death, one of Indiana's most serious charges, carrying a potential sentence of 20 to 40 years in prison. Her upcoming jury trial, set for November 2025, will decide her fate. Until then, she remains under court order not to contact her 9-year-old daughter, who witnessed the shooting and is considered a key witness. The girl now lives with her grandmother, Melissa Etheridge, who defends her daughter fiercely. It was an absolute accident, Etheridge told reporters. She may have been negligent, but she would never harm her babies. At a custody hearing, Keiara sat quietly, visibly drained, wearing a gray jumpsuit. The judge denied her request for unsupervised visitation, emphasizing the trauma her daughter endured. Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears called the case heartbreaking on every level, noting, "2 children are gone, 2 families are shattered. And it never should have happened." His words reignited debate over Indiana's lack of firearm safety laws. Despite repeated legislative attempts, Indiana still does not require gun owners to take safety courses or secure weapons from children. From this tragedy come painful lessons. Guns must never be left unsecured, even for seconds. Children's curiosity is faster than adult judgment, and one lapse in responsibility can rewrite lives forever. In a world where safety can hinge on a zipper, the smallest mistake can carry the heaviest cost, and no sentence can equal a mother's lifelong grief. Number 10. Keiara Hinds. In the crowded chaos of Broad Ripple's nightlife, one gunshot turned a summer gathering into a scene of panic and death. It was just after 2:30 a.m. on the 25th of June 2023 when 24-year-old Keiara Hinds, an Indianapolis woman, found herself in the center of a confrontation that would end 3 lives and alter her own forever. What began as a petty argument on a busy street filled with hundreds of people became one of the most shocking mass shootings in the city that year. Witnesses recalled a tense argument between 2 groups. An officer had broken up an earlier fight, but the dispute reignited minutes later. "I don't give a F, I'm about to shoot everywhere," one woman shouted before chaos erupted. That woman, police later confirmed, was Hinds. Moments later, someone hit her in the back of the head. Enraged, Hinds dropped her hat and food, pulled out a handgun, and opened fire into the crowd. The gunfire sent hundreds fleeing in terror. Officers nearby heard the shots and raced toward the sound, finding 4 victims lying on the pavement. Tywayne Henning, 24, and Keiara Bickett, 22, were pronounced dead at the scene. 2 others were rushed to the hospital. One of them, Christopher Wilson Jr., later died. Detectives from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department collected more than a dozen shell casings, pieces of clothing, and a red and black baseball cap with a bullet hole through its brim. Witness videos circulated online within hours, showing a figure running and firing into the crowd. Using surveillance footage, social media clues, and tips describing the suspect as a masculine-acting female, detectives identified Keiara Hinds. DNA tests confirmed her profile on the hat found at the crime scene. On September 28, police tracked her to an apartment near West Lane Road. During questioning, Hinds first denied being in Broad Ripple that night, then changed her story, admitting she had been hit, dropped her hat, and fired her weapon, claiming it was in self-defense. Forensic testing of a .40 caliber Glock 27 recovered from her home linked directly to bullets found in the victims. The trial, held in August 2025, lasted 5 days. Prosecutors argued that Hinds made a deliberate choice to shoot into a crowd. Defense attorneys insisted she acted in panic, not intent. The jury disagreed. On the 21st of August 2025, Hinds was found guilty of 2 counts of murder, 1 count of reckless homicide, and criminal recklessness. At her sentencing on the 12th of September, 2025, the judge imposed a 113-year prison sentence. Keiara Bickett's mother said she was very happy with the sentence, while another relative called it justice, but not enough. Prosecutor Ryan Mears said, "She chose to fire into a crowd. There's nothing accidental about that." The tragedy underscored painful truths. Anger and pride can be deadlier than intent, weapons amplify chaos, and one split-second decision can erase countless futures. Violence born of impulse leaves no winners, only echoes of regret that time will never quiet. These stories from Indiana reveal how pride, jealousy, and rage can twist into murder, leaving justice to chase the ghosts they leave behind. But the darkness doesn't end here. There are more cases, more truths still waiting in the shadows. Stay with us as we uncover what lies beneath America's calm surface. Subscribe to Justice Reversed, hit the notification bell, and don't miss the next chapter of Inside Indiana's Most Notorious Black Killers full list and shocking true crime cases.